Wein Salema Arbalest, the crown prince of Natra kingdom, has recently become in charge of his kingdom. After his father fell sick, he is brilliant, gentle-looking, and beloved by the kingdom's people. Everyone follows his order without any question. But in secret, he detests his responsibilities and plots to sell the kingdom for his own gain. The economy of Natra kingdom is poor with extensive debts. The kingdom is located in the northern region of the continent. As it has long winters and no decent farmland, no major industry of value, and also no money to invest in development. Thus he decides to develop the kingdom so he can sell it for more money. The only one who knows of Wein's selfishness is his aide, Ninam Relay, who tries to keep him in line. Princess Falanya talks about their father's condition. Wein explains the rich Marden kingdom, which was once poor, but after the gold mine discovery, they grow rapidly. Despite that, King of Marden is hated by his citizens, so he plans to invade Natra and make himself popular. Marden sends 7,000 soldiers against Natra's force. After Wein's rousing improvised speech to boast army's moral war being, soon after, much to Wein's surprise, who hopes to badly defend Natra and negotiate to exchange the kingdom for money, Natra's forces start pushing the enemy back. Wein's Garnal Hagel explains it's due to a deal he made with Earthworld Empire for funding and training. Natra's soldier now has the Empire's technique and equipment. Since it's their first battle, Natra's forces soon start to lose their advantage. Enemy's general seeks this opportunity to take Wein's head and chases after him. But Wein lures him into the trap where Nanimu has been waiting for him. With this, Nanimu takes the enemy's general's head, and Natra successfully defeats the Marden army. After that, Wein's generals suggest capturing more land, much to Wein's great frustration, knowing he should keep his general's loyalty and maintain his facade as an incredible ruler. Wein proposes attacking Marden's biggest gold mine. Trusting his officers will regard as valiant idea, however, reject the thought as too dangerous. Unfortunately, the generals all consent to the attack. Wein holds out trust the invasion will bomb, yet the mine is taken easily, bringing wealth to Natra. The next morning, the chief miner arrives and gives Wein a report about mine's current condition. After learning that the gold mine he defended was actually worthless, Wein's dream to become rich is shattered. Meanwhile, Marden's king Fushtar is convinced by his corrupt advisors to send General Drawwood and his military to retake the mine, despite the fact that it leaves their borders undefended. On the other hand, Prince Wein, still hoping to make a profit to sell the gold mine back to the King of Marden, who was unaware of the mine's true value. Wein planned to defend the mine for 1 month and then sell it. Marden's large army under General Drawwood's command attacks the mine, and after weeks of fighting, still can't retake it. So Drawwood sends Commander Logan to negotiate peace on his behalf. Commander Logan, in the name of negotiation, demanding them to withdraw their troops, leave their weapons, and pay the compensation of the war to Marden, basically asking for unconditional surrender. However, Prince Wein refuses to accept any of his demands, and before Logan leaves, he grossly insults Wein's men, in particular, Ninam, and raises a red flag for himself, and Wein beheads Logan. The next day, Wein personally infiltrates Drawwood's camp and kills him for insulting Ninam, revealing just how strong his feelings for her are, saying Ninam is his heart, and if anyone wound it shall die by his hand. Elsewhere, Ambassador Brandel finds that Wein had gone to Earthwold's military academy and came first in every class, a humiliation to Earthwold, who kept his test scores a state secret. In Natra, while everyone celebrates the victory, Wein learns Marden was invaded through its unprotected border by the Cavern Kingdom, and Fushtar is dead, ending his plan to sell back the mine. Fortunately, his chief miner finds another gold vein. As Wein prepares to celebrate his kingdom's newfound wealth, Ninam reminds him of his responsibilities and the need to keep working. Princess Loa of Earthworld Empire arrives at Natra and offered her hand in marriage to Natra's crown prince Wein. To more surprise, the princess happens to be one of the friends of Wein and Ninam from the academy. However, Wein is suspicious of Loa's intentions, as she has a reputation for causing trouble. Later, Wein and Ninam sneak into Loa's room through item boxes. In a private conversation, Loa reveals to Wein about the Empire's current situation, that her 3 older brothers are fighting to become the emperor. and she wants Wine's help to become empress. However, Wein remains suspicious as Loa's visit has coincided with the smuggling of weapons into Natra. Falania's bodyguard Nanaki asks Ninam for help. Falania, who wonders why Wein doesn't marry Ninam, asks her about it, but Ninam claims marriage is impossible due to her Flam people being discriminated against, so she is content knowing Wein loves her and declares her as his only heart like only the sun and moon in the sky. Ambassador Brandel asks Loa about her academy life. Loa and Ninam remember their other friends, Glenn and Strang, while Loa reveals that she has problems with Gerard Antgadal, who wants to marry her. Wein tutors Falania in inter-kingdom politics, focusing on Antgadal, telling Antgadal once was an independent kingdom before it was annexed by the Empire, and how its leader at that time became known as a charlatan, and is now ruled by his son Grenik. Loa remembers how at the academy, Wein recognized her ambition and bluntly told her to take what she wants, perhaps by starting a war. He likewise obtusely told her he would abstain from aiding no matter what, so she would need to drag him into her conflict by fraud, which she is at present conspiring to do, and considers how Wein will attempt to move right out of it. The next day, Wein invites Loa for tea, and reveals that due to the current situation of the Empire, the nations conquered by the Empire are staging a rebellion. By referring to weapons smuggled in Natra, he also correctly guesses that Loa's brothers are too busy fighting each other to have noticed, so Lowell is trying to manipulate Grenik into rebelling early, by using her betrothal as bait. As Wein's latter's response, Grenik's son Gerard arrives to claim Lowell as his fiancé. Wein reasons Loa will manipulate Gerard toward finishing his dad's rebellion utilizing Natra's military, so Wein should make an effort not to be manipulated toward giving over his military. Gerard finds that Loa and Wein know each other from the academy and also learns that Wein was trained with a sword and asks for a demonstration in a duel with him. Wein expects the duel to be a draw, however Gerard is so bumbling Wein wins without hardly lifting a finger. Furious, Gerard attempts to stab Wein in the back, while Wein tries to drop his sword purposely, but he is so drunk that he smashes through a window and falls to his death. The news of Gerard's death reaches his father, Grenik. Grenik believes that Gerard was assassinated by Wein and Lowell and prepares for war. Meanwhile, the conspirators behind are afraid of the rebellion being discovered. Wein is furious. He now faces war with Garen and probably the Empire. Loa suggests crushing the rebellion, but Natra's current budget has limited Natra's army to only 500 men. Wein knows that time is running out, and the fate of the kingdom rests on his shoulders. Wein pays an official visit to Antgadal to return Gerard's body to Grenik and discuss peace. Wein reveals that Loa knows about the rebellion, but offers to let Grenik claim innocence by putting all blame on Gerard as the real conspirator behind the rebellion. Grenik asks for time to consider, so Wein leaves. The real conspirators scramble to work out what Wein is up to and attack him on his way. Grenik also sends his guards after Wein to get revenge for Gerard. Wein had been expecting this and realized the conspirators are all from the Western Kingdom and had clearly tried to manipulate Grenik toward taking care of their dirty work for the rebellion, but the plot has now failed. While Nanaki stops other conspirators from destroying evidence in Grenik's castle, Grenik pursues Wein as he gets away from back toward Natra, just to find Wein has positioned his military on the border, catching Grenik among Wein and Loa, who shows up with her own Imperial soldiers. Grenik is now trapped, and there is no escape. Having been exposed and captured, Grenik admits to everything about rebellion. With her mission successful, Loa cancels her engagement to Wein. However, Ninam fools her into admitting she likes Wein ever since their academy day. Wein admits there were simpler ways he might have crushed Grenik. Yet this way implies Loa currently has command over him for use from now on, reminding her old promise. Loa returns to the Empire hoping one day to be empress. Wein has been forced to visit the neighboring Cavern Kingdom for the Spirit Festival, a festival of the Levitian religion. During his journey, Wein visits his captured gold mine and worries that trouble could emerge following the retirement of his general, Hagel. A few Natran aristocrats lead by a lady named Ibis plot to seize Wein's throne. Wein is ambushed by soldiers disguised as bandits, but is rescued by remnants of Marden's army. They take him to their leader named General Zeno. Zeno threatens to assassinate Wein to prevent him from allying with Cavern, However, as Wein suspects the bandits were cavern warriors, he offers Zeno admittance to cavern by means of his diplomatic status, permitting her to meet leaders of different kingdoms, expected partners against cavern, which she accepts. Everyone arrives at cavern's capital, Tristoria. Wein comes across General Leverd and suspects he was behind the fake bandit ambush. Wein then meets with the king of Cavern, Ordelas. While Zeno nearly assassinates Holinia, treacherous previous counsel to her deceased king Fushtar, but is stopped by Ninum. Ordelas introduces Wein to the Holy Elite, Levitian's ruling members, and is shocked everyone by inviting Wein as a new member. Wein meets privately with Elite Kuldmelia, but leaves when she asks Wein to wipe out the remnants of Martin's army in exchange for accepting him as elite. It is revealed Kuldmelia is aligned with Owl, one of the Antidal plotters who lost an arm dueling with Wein. As per Wein's ordered, Ninum finds proof that Leverd is conspiring to kill Wein and overthrow Natra. At the same time, Ibis and the nobles take over Wein's gold mine. Wein realizes that by elevating him to elite, Ordelas hopes to put Wein in his debt. Zeno arrives and requests Wein to take her with him. Wein along with Zeno meets Ordelas. Holinia is also there. Ordelas casually informs Wein that he had a daughter who disappointed him, leading him to execute his wife, claiming she conceived their daughter in an affair with another man, without any proof. As if this wasn't enough, he then casually mentions his desire to purchase Flum citizens from the Natra kingdom, to hunt them for sport, enraging Wein. Wein, unable to control his anger, attacks and murders Ordelas on the spot. Zeno, who had been planning to avenge her mother's death, kills Holinia. With the king and his loyalists dead, chaos descends on Cavern. Wein and others manage to get away from the capital by setting the city on fire as a distraction. Kuldmelia, a cunning manipulator, frames Levert for conspiring against Ordelas and moves to seize power in Cavern. Out of twisted gratitude to Wein, she informs him that corrupt Natran nobles have seized control of Natra. Using the information provided by Kuldmelia, Wein sets a trap for Levert and his army between the treasonous nobles' army and the Marden soldiers, forcing Levert to attack both, making Ibis's plan fail. General Hagel also shows up on the time, and Wein reveals that he faked his retirement, so he can end the rebellion. Hagel destroys Levert and the Natran traitors. Afterward, in a surprising twist, Zeno arrives and reveals that she is actually the Princess of Marden, a fact that Wein had known all along. Meanwhile, Ibis reports to Kuldmelia, who begins plotting even more chaos. Zeno requests that Marden become a vassal state to Natra, only to make Wein's life more complicated. Loa and her brothers are attending the summit of Imperial heirs in Milter's merchant city, where they will negotiate for the throne. Loa invites Wein to join her, and is excited to see his face, but it is Falania who attends in his place. Wein, not wanting to attend the summit and had intended to claim he was busy so as to annoy Loa, not expecting Falania to volunteer. He sends Ninum and Nanaki to chaperone Falania. On the way, Ninum educates Falania about Loa's current position in the Empire and ongoing summit of Imperial heirs. At the party, Loa introduces Falania to her three brothers. Manfred, Bardlosh, and Demetrio are the three heirs vying for the throne. Wein already informed her about princes. Manfred is using cunning and bribery to gain support. Bardlosh has the support of the military, and Demetrio is a notorious troublemaker. Loa asks Ninum that she wants Falania to support her publicly, but Ninum informed her that Wein is only interested in an alliance with the Empire if Loa is its empress. The next day, Milter's mayor gives Falania a city tour, where Falania becomes intrigued by the citizens' assembly, where common merchants can create laws, and starts to take an interest in how Milter's is ruled. Demetrio, feeling insulted by Falania's presence instead of Wein's, and comes up with an idea, pretends to desire an alliance with Natra. He asks Falania to marry him. However, his plan is to abuse her terribly once she becomes his wife. Falania and Ninum realize as well. Showing her knowledge of royal marriages, Falania refuses him, and angry Demetrio swears to ruin Natra once he becomes emperor. But Wein suddenly appears, learning from Ninum what's going now on. He agrees to Demetrio's proposal to marry Falania, but also says that he and Loa will also marry. Understanding that two imperial relationships would give Natra tremendous power in the domain, Demetrio consents to examine the matter later. Later, Wein stresses the Levitians will attempt to prevent Milters from joining the Empire, and showing symptoms of ill health. Loa invites Wein to a private meeting. She shares her worries with him, telling him that the summit will fail. Meanwhile, worried about Wein's intentions, Manfred orders him assassinated. Falania spends more time at the citizens' assembly and is surprised when the merchants invite her to participate in their discussion. At his next meeting with Demetrio, Wein realizes the tea is poisoned, so he orders the maid to drink it. But thinking Wein is trying to insult his hospitality, Demetrio drinks the tea himself before Wein can stop him and collapses. Several days later, Demetrio somehow survives, but Manfred and Bardlosh blame Milters and surround the city with their armies. Wein decides they should escape to Natra, but Lavicia's army also arrives, supposedly to save Milters from Manfred and Bardlosh. The situation worsens Wein's health, and he collapses. Everyone is worried and blaming each other. Then Falania arrives and manages to calm down the worried citizen by giving a speech to the panicking assembly. Wein awakens and shares a caring moment with Ninum, who is worried about him. While Falania gathers every citizen, reasoning that citizens are more important than the city, Falania convinces to evacuate all 30,000 citizens, who walk directly past the staggered militaries to ask Coldmelia for asylum. Knowing Lavicia can't cope with 30,000 refugees, Wein steps in with a suggestion. Wein recommends Milter's residents battle for themselves by purchasing weapons and food from Lavicia's army at triple prices. Coldmelia is impressed with Wein's bold suggestion and almost refuses just to see Wein panic, but her King Grier accepts. With newly purchased weapons, citizens started to defend the city. Later, Manfred and Bardlosh meet with Wein to discuss recent events. Wein claims Demetrio planned his own failed poisoning to gain more standing in the Empire. Bardlosh and Manfred know this is a blatant lie, but they are forced to agree to avoid a war. Afterward, Loa is surprised to learn that Wein only got involved because of Falania, because he didn't want her first political experience to end in failure. Natra's economy starts booming, and Ninum is impressed with Wein's change of heart regarding the sale of Natra, despite the fact that it is for yet more childish reasons. Wein received an invitation from King Grier of Solgist Kingdom to attend a ceremony. During his journey, he decides to stop Martin and suspects that Zeno will ask for a political marriage. Unfortunately for him, upon arriving at Martin, whole day has passed, and despite the advantages for Martin, Zeno never mentions marriage. The next morning, Zeno offers Wein and Ninum to the city around, and Wein is still hoping she will ask him for marriage. But instead of marriage, she asks him, why do he concern himself with the well-being of commoners? He explains to her that all royal families began with a commoner, so commoners all have the potential for nobility in the future. It is wise to be wary of them in the present. As he asks about marriage, she claims he is not her type. Zeno then reveals she would be an unfit queen for a king like Wein. Just then Sergius, Prime Minister of Delunio, arrives. The Western kingdoms were under the Lavician religion and refused to trade with the Empire, so Wein sold them via Martin, by labeling them as Natras. Prime Minister Sergius of Delunio caught wind of the scheme and confronted Wein, but Wein dismissed Sergius's accusations and remained confident in his plan. Wein soon arrives at the trading port of Solgist, Ficha, where he is impressed by its bustling activity and thinks to make deal with Solgist. Upon arriving at Solgists, he is surprised to see the king using a palanquin to move around. Suspecting that King Grier of Solgist might try to prevent the sale of imperial goods, Wein plans to manipulate Grier against the hostile Delunio kingdom. However, his plans are disrupted by Princess Tulcela, Grier's daughter. Tulcela manages to distract Wein with the exquisite food and hospitality of Solgist. Meanwhile, Sergius sends a letter to Zeno, demanding back the land that Martin had leased to Natra, arguing that since Martin is now part of Natra, the lease is null and void. After the ceremony concludes, Wein tries to talk to King Grier, but gets ignored each time by the king. Wein suspects that Grier will try to assassinate him. That's why he is ignoring him. But when they meet, he is surprised by Grier, who treats Ninum well and claims that, despite being a Lavician, does not think of Flams like Ninum as devils, and is quite liberal. Grier also agrees to Wein's offer of an alliance between Natra and Solgists, but as Wein leaves, it is revealed that Grier is secretly working with Sergius. After returning to Natra, Wein is told that Delunio has invaded Martin, and Solgist has declared war on Natra. Zeno suggests that Natra should make peace with Delunio, But Wein declares that he has a plan to turn everything upside down. Along with Zeno, Wein headed to Delunio, while Solgist's army battled against Natra. Upon arriving at Delunio, they meet Sergius to negotiate. Zeno tries to convince Sergius by offering twice the size of land that Delunio landed to Martin, but failed. Sergius had the plan to donate the recaptured Martin land to the Levitian Church in exchange for becoming a holy elite. However, his plans are disrupted by the Wein, who offers to assassinate Gruyere, pointing out that Solgist's growing power could lead to a war with Natra and Delunio. Overconfident, Sergius refuses and offers to accept Natran refugees after the war. However, Wein declares that Natra's 800,000 citizens will move into Delunio as refugees immediately. Sergius is aware that Wein already did something similar with Milter's 30,000 citizens, and he panics at the thought of such a large influx of people. Wein also falsely claims that the clothing he sold to Delunio via Martin was covered in a slow-acting poison, causing the citizens of Delunio to panic. As Wein mentions about Antidote, outmaneuvered by Wein's daring and scheming, Sergius is forced to agree to Wein's terms. Delunio sends its army against Solgists and King Gruyere, trapped between Natra's and Delunio's army. In the battle, King Gruyere is defeated by Ninum and Natra wins the battle. While imprisoned in Natra, Gruyere loses his extra fat. Wein reveals that Sergius's surrender and he is no longer a threat. Gruyere agrees to sign peace declarations only if Wein tells him what drives him to such extremes. Wein's answer first shocks and then highly amuses Gruyere. In the end, the next morning, Ninum points out that achieving peace has cost Natra most of its wealth and its peaceful relationship with the Levitian Church. Wein throws a tantrum as he realizes his plan to sell Natra has failed. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this. If you have any suggestions or questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Until next time, take care.